Attention denizens of planet Earth.
Broadcasting from Carbondale in Southern Illinois' premier comic shop. And now your host, superlative shaman of comic book knowledge, Dan Brown. Flash the match signal in case of emergency for your host with the most on his mind, Matt Morton. Watch out, criminals. There's nothing funny to him about truth, justice, and the American way. It's Commander Harris himself, Scott Reed. And tuning in from the far reaches of no man's land, the mad scientist dream leader, Mike Ho. This is Campus Comics Cast.
Hey there, welcome to the latest episode of the Campus Comics Cast. This is Dan Brown, just letting you know that Campus Comics is open for business. We are located at 816 East Main Street in Carbondale, Illinois. We are open Tuesday through Saturday, 11 to 6, regular hours. So come by. We just asked that everybody, wears a mask and kind of observes social distancing guidelines. We've got an event coming up at the store this weekend, August 29th. We're going to be having a sort of a mini-con swap meet sort of thing at the store, and it's also record store day for Plaza Records, a couple stores down from us, and there's going to be some other events going on at the shopping center there, so come check them out. Scott, you going to be there?
I am going to be there.
Okay, that's Scott Reed joining us this time, and we're also joined by
Mike Atchison.
Okay.
And I won't be there.
Mike won't be there.
Just a previous engagement, sorry.
So yeah, we did something like that a little while ago at the store. It was pretty successful. I think everybody had a good time, so we're going to try that again. This time, we are going to be talking about a few different things. DC, a lot of news coming out of DC right now, but we're going to be kind of talking about the first part of the DC Fandome event, which happened this last Saturday online, since we can't have any physical conventions really right now. Seems like everything keeps getting pushed back, and then they act like they're going to do it, then it gets shut down. So not a lot of conventions to go to this year. So, some of them are doing them online, and this was sort of DC's dedicated event that they did. There were some last minute changes the day or two prior to the event where a lot of the content got cut, and they have announced they're going to do a second day of this on September 12th, I believe. And so this was just a lot of the panels and things that they did this last Saturday. A lot of movie and game talk, not a lot of comic talk, not as much as I would want. But again, right now, with the other news with DC, a lot of that stuff's probably in flux right now.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows how much of that they even wanted to talk about right now. And it's not like there was a way to really ask questions about that at this event. There was a lot of fan questions and stuff, but that was all stuff that was submitted previous to the event. And so DC just kind of picked and choose what they were going to answer on all that, of course. So let's see. So everything kind of started out with a Wonder Woman 1984 panel. Again, that movie should have been out a couple months ago now,
Mm-hmm.
in the real world before everything happened. We saw a new trailer. We finally got to see Kristen Wiig as the cheetah. So as the actual cheetah, which I've been waiting for. I was getting worried that we're going to get like an 80s, 90s superhero thing where we just get a character called that wearing plain clothes or something.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of cop-outs older fans remember. But we are getting her transformed into the cheetah. So that's kind of neat seeing that finally.
Yeah, hopefully the CGI on that will be decent. Every time they do something like that, I have flashbacks of even the Black Panther where there's that scene where they're both fighting and falling down into into the mountain there, that it just looks so bad. So hopefully this will look a little bit better. Hopefully they'll take some extra time.
They don't really have an excuse to not spend the time on this at this point.
No, they sure don't.
This movie's been pushed back. So is everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So better look good again. Just a lot of kind of quick cuts in the trailer so far. I don't know if we ever got like a great shot of her, but just knowing it's in there is nice.
So are you? So I haven't watched the trailer yet, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
But are you more excited, less excited, or the same amount of excited for the movie?
More excited now because I know that we're actually getting like a traditional looking cheetah
Okay.
in the film. So the fact that they hadn't shown anything of that was making me worried that they weren't going to do it or they weren't going to commit to it.
Now, when you say traditional, Dan, there's There's traditional 1944, and then there's traditional.
We'll say 80s, where she is like transformed into a cheetah person,
All right.
not wearing a suit,
Gotcha.
not wearing a spandex cheetah outfit.
And I'm good with that as well. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't just a leopard suit or a cheetah suit.
I tell you what, it looks sort of like what we got on Justice League Unlimited with Cheetah. It seems kind of similar to that now that we're talking about it.
Well, hopefully they didn't use the technology from Cats for that. So
yeah, no, I've already seen some memes of that online.
Yeah.
So after that, they had the Warner Brothers Games Montreal announcement, and so that was for the new Batman game, Gotham Knights, which apparently will not have Batman in it. So it is starring Nightwing, Robin, Red Hood, and Batgirl. Again, something I wanted in the Arkham games was, playable versions of all of them, and so it looks like we're getting it now. But apparently this is not keeping in continuity with the previous Batman Arkham games, which I thought was surprising, because this is Warner Brothers Montreal, who did the Batman Arkham Origins game, which was sort of an extra chapter to that trilogy and was a really good game. So I'm kind of surprised they're not keeping with that continuity. Style-wise, it definitely fits within that world. You see it, it looks like an Arkham game.
With a video game, I don't care about continuity.
Right.
But
it's like they had 4 successful games. Why not keep with that? You know what I mean? Like, why just toss that aside? I mean, it's probably still a fine game.
Yeah.
But it seems like you would want to keep that going, especially with the presentation. It looks like it is an Arkham game. After that was the Sandman universe. They had Neil Gaiman on there and G. Wilson talking about Sandman and talking about, the difficulty of making the comic back in the day, talking about the new Audible show that they're doing, and Neil Gaiman was talking about a Netflix show for Sandman, which is supposed to be happening, but like everything else has been production's been put on hold for that with everything else going on.
Have you listened to that audiobook yet?
I have not.
I haven't either. I'm planning on picking it up on my Audible subscription. I just haven't actually put it in the cart yet. So.
Right. After that was the Multiverse 101 panel. And this was a panel with Jim Lee, who was in a lot of this stuff. Jim Lee was all over this event. But again, if this was last year, it'd be Dan DiDio all over the place. It's just he's gone, so he's not there. But this was also with what was notable to me on this was Walter Hamada was also there, who was the president of Warner Brothers. And again, this was just him from his home in a hoodie, which was a little surprising. But the big takeaway from this was they are, sort of making the multiverse a thing in the DC films. There was a lot of talk about the Flash crossover we got on Crisis on Infinite Earths on the CW show, where Ezra Miller showed up on the Flash TV show, had the scene with Grant Gustin.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like this is really sort of a way for them to right the ship with their films. Another good thing, and it's kind of a sea change for how Warner Brothers handled DC, is they mentioned the old policy of shows can't use characters that are coming up in movies, which has hindered a lot of DC shows over the years. I think it's led to some really awkward things, but again, it seems like most of these shows kind of work around it, and if you're not really paying attention, sometimes I don't think you notice it. But they did bring up that, we can have a Flash on TV, we can have a Flash in the movies. Usually what you run into with that is they can't use certain villains that are going to come up. That's why Ra's al Ghul was never on the Justice League cartoon, because Batman Begins was on the way. But like they brought up at this panel was, it could be years before these movies come out. And so then for the whole duration of a TV show, you can't use a character maybe. And again, it's like, who cares?
Right.
It's like, it's not like a TV show is going to ruin a character.
No. And it's not like a viewer is going to be confused by, well, that's not the same Flash that I see on my TV set on Tuesday nights.
Yeah, and it's just like, it seems like this whole multiverse sort of policy is just a way for them to get around that, which is fine.
It's also a way for them to recast some characters that they need to, if if things change. Because I'm kind of surprised Ezra Miller is still going to be in the Flash.
Yeah, me too.
Based on some events and plus I just didn't care for him as Barry Allen anyway. No. But now if they can't get Cavill back, they can cast a new Superman, and he comes from a multiverse. So.
Well, the other thing too with the multiverse, as far as the Flash movie goes, is the big news too was Ben Affleck is also coming back as Batman alongside Michael Keaton in that movie. So looks like we're gonna get another, at least one more Batman in there. I'd say throw a couple more in, but
you might as well. So
yeah. And then after that was introducing Flash. Again, sort of talking about the movie a little bit. They had the director on there, and I'm like, yeah, we'll see if he's the director. Filming something that had gone through like 4 directors maybe for this movie.
I have no idea.
You know? Yeah, so there was a Beyond Batman panel. Not a lot going on there. Then there was the Suicide Squad panel, and this is for James Gunn's movie. We had I don't know if this is online or not, but there was sort of a teaser trailer that shows who everyone is playing. It just broke down all the actors and who they were playing. This might be online. I know the other trailer they had at the end, where sort of behind the scenes / teaser trailer, is online. You can watch that. But this kind of broke down who everyone is playing. And so, there's a lot of speculation as to who's who in here. A lot of actors, definitely enough disposable characters in there for bodies to be dropping. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that's what's going to happen here.
I mean, you can't imagine. You don't think Ratcatcher's going to be alive at the end of the movie?
It's apparently it is Ratcatcher 2. It's not Otis Flanagan, the original Ratcatcher. This is another Ratcatcher character.
Yeah.
The way James Gunn was talking about that character is, I do think Ratcatcher survives till the end.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Some of the others, Pete Davidson is playing Blackguard, the Booster Gold villain, which looks nothing like the comic version. I don't think he makes it to the end.
Right. Some people just wanted their little cameo and be done.
Yeah.
It was like, what was it? Slipknot? Was it Slipknot in the first Suicide Squad? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people in there. Again, we found out too now that Idris Elba is playing Bloodsport from the Superman comics. And I guess this is a little bit of a spoiler, I guess. I don't really consider it to be one, but they said at the beginning of the movie he is in jail for shooting Superman with a kryptonite bullet, which is something the character did in his first appearance in Superman #4, I think it was, during the John Byrne run in the 80s. So the character doesn't look anything like he did in the comics, which is probably good because it was such an 80s looking design, sort of a Rambo kind of look to the character. But it sounds like he's still, the same kind of character anyway.
Nathan Fillion as TDK.
Yeah. Which is an original character, apparently. I was freaking out trying to figure out who that was for a while. And you can't search DC TDK without bringing up The Dark Knight.
Oh, well,
so,
yeah.
Fun finding that out.
And Peter Capaldi is a surprise.
Yeah.
Was he announced previously?
Yeah, he was.
Okay, all right. So I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to the trailers and stuff for this. So
yeah, he's playing the Thinker in it, and John Cena's playing Peacemaker. So we're getting a live action Peacemaker. Go figure. And it looks like Peacemaker. He's got the sort of steel chrome helmet. It's definitely Peacemaker.
Looks like a toilet seat.
Yeah.
But I like the character.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll like this version. Cena was kind of describing him as a douchey Captain America. So
Great.
We'll see how that goes. Again, I think they're going to take a lot of liberty with these characters, but a lot of these, this is the only way you're going to get some of these characters too, I think. So
I see they pulled, they had to pull another actor from Marvel Cinematic, so they got Michael Rooker.
Yeah, well, you got James Gunn, you're going to get Michael Rooker in there.
Yeah, that's true. Let's see. Well, of course, I guess Nathan Fillion was in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie as well. So
yeah, he was cut from the second.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Rooker's playing Savant.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in Birds of Prey. I just got this.
Seems like a weird choice.
Yeah, he's pretty obscure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if there's a chance of any of them dying, then they have to pick characters that they can go on without. So in the overall universe,
sure. And that they're allowed to kill, in these movies.
Yeah.
So,
and it goes back with when they announced the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. It's like, how can that be good? But with all these oddball characters, hopefully they can do it right this time.
Yeah. Let's see. had a few more panels. There was a Chris Daughtry performance, which he met P-Break in This Long Day. So there's that. Oh, later on there was a Jim Lee portfolio review, which was kind of awkward to watch. So an aspiring artist sort of submitted his portfolio previous to this, and Jim Lee was kind of walking him through his portfolio. And as an artist, that can be hard to hear sometimes, but when the whole world is hearing it,
yeah,
that seems really awkward. And something I hadn't considered, which of course is a thing, is since it was all digital, Jim Lee apparently already had his portfolio in Photoshop and was kind of touching things up as he was talking about it and kind of making adjustments to explain things to him. But it just felt really rough watching that. Just watching Jim Lee kind of manipulate this guy's art in front of him. It was just kind of a tough thing to watch with that. I hope, best of luck to that guy.
Yeah, no kidding. So
after that was the surprise panel, which turned out to be the announcement of the return of the Milestone line. Again, Dennis Cowan on there, Reggie Hudlin, Phil Lamar, who was the voice of Static on the Static Shock cartoon, kind of talking about. So we're getting a little more concrete information now. We know DC's been wanting to bring this stuff back for a couple years now. There's been a lot of roadblocks and things happening, but it looks like February is going to be the relaunch of the Milestone universe. There's going to be an original graphic novel of Static with Reggie Hudlin, and they got Kyle Baker to draw it apparently, and it will be followed up by a series. And they're sort of reintroducing Icon and Rocket. I don't know how many more books are coming. It sounds like initially there's probably just those two.
Are they going to be print books is the next question.
Yes. Oh, man. I'm trying to think. There was there wasn't very much comic news at all this, and so I'm getting a little confused with some digital stuff they were also talking about.
Okay. It does say Static will return in a digital first series in February 2021 with a standalone Static graphic novel also on the way. So
I think a lot of digital first stuff, but I think it is supposed to be print too.
Okay.
So because I think it's digital first, not digital exclusive, is how they've listed it.
If you have access to AMC, and I can't remember the name of the series now, but Robert Kirkman had a series.
I just looked that up again the other day, and I can't remember it either.
And they dedicated an entire episode to Milestone. It's like, and when you read the blurb, it sounds like Image. It's like he's getting ready to go in and talk about Image, but he actually is talking about like 7 guys leave the big publishers and form their own thing, and it ends up being Milestone instead of being Image. So it's actually really, really good. It's a really great history.
Secret History of Comics.
There we go. Thank you. Really good. That entire series is actually really good. So
Image was another thing that came up during that panel because they had talked about how they had to help differentiate themselves from Image. And one of the things they said was Image was a bunch of white guys, and Jim Lee is on this panel, and he's like, hold up. They're like mostly white guys. But Jim Lee talked about, too, how when Milestone launched, they had like this sort of really nice after party at one of the cons, and he said he went there and all the Milestone guys were wearing tuxes and like really dressed up. And they were like, yeah, because the Image guys were just wearing T-shirts and jeans. Like, they can get away with that. Like, we had to, represent more. And he's talking about that and sort of what they had to do to kind of get all that going back in the day. So, it's kind of interesting. I think Sci-Fi Wire, I think, also did a 2-part thing about Milestone, which is really good. That's on YouTube.
Oh, really? Okay, I'll have to look for that.
Watch. Then there was the I'm Batman, the voices behind the cowl panel. I was hoping Kevin Conroy, Diedrich Bader, these kind of guys. Nope. It's all the guys who dubbed Batman in the other countries. So there was definitely a sort of a global aspect to this event. They had hosts from around the world kind of presenting things on here. I'm sure that's fun for other people, but I wasn't very interested in this. Especially because right after this was the Snyder Cut Justice League panel.
Right.
We saw the new trailer, which again, that's online. We got some better look of Darkseid in here. I think that's decided in there real quick in the trailer. We kind of see. I'm kind of wondering how different this is going to be from the movie that was released. I'm seeing a lot of footage here that wasn't in the movie that we got. So it'll be interesting to see like how different it actually is. It does look like they're spending some money on this. The previously reported 20 to 30 million, but they said they're not doing reshoots with the actors, so we'll see how that plays out.
This is being released on HBO Max.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and there's also a Warner Max logo at the beginning of the trailer too, which I don't think I've seen on anything yet. And Zack Snyder did say that it is going to be released in 4-hour-long installments, but he also said that after that they will probably do a 4-hour-long cut if you want to watch it just like a movie like that. So if you want to
How would it be much different other than you don't have the credits the 3 times in between?
So if you want to Lord of the Rings it, you can too. I suppose. Let's see. After that was the Flash TV panel, kind of talking about the next season of the Flash. There was some footage they showed. Again, their last season kind of got truncated because of the shutdown and everything going on. So they've got to kind of wrap up the last story and get on with the new. No talk about what they're planning on doing with the Elongated Man, since that actor was fired from the show.
I thought I saw something where that they were going to definitely keep Sue Dibney in the next season.
They've said in this panel, though, they didn't acknowledge any of that. Which it's like I could see why they wouldn't, but it'd be nice to hear something. I know there's been an interview like that came up today, I think, where they were kind of talking about that and saying the fact that the character can change his face is probably going to come into play later on. I don't think we've seen the last of the Elongated Man on that show. After that was the Black Adam panel where we had Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson on there, kind of talking about what their plans are for the movie. Again, this
sounds like lots of JSA.
Yeah, JSA coming in. So they showed, we got kind of like a concept art trailer, sort of a motion comic sort of thing they showed. And they are saying Dr. Fate, Hawkman, Cyclone, and Atom Smasher for the JSA in that. So, we'll be getting all those characters live action in a movie. Again, just, a lot of what you would almost want to call speculation at this point, just because nothing's really set in stone with that movie yet, it seems like. They did show like the logo for it. So that's out there now. But yeah, they didn't have any footage to show yet or anything like that. So it's just like some concept art that we've already seen and then this sort of quasi trailer they threw up. Then they did CNN Heroes, Real Life Heroes in the Age of Coronavirus. And again, that's just sort of, kind of people making the best out of a bad situation in real life. With Anderson Cooper talking about that. After that was a Titans TV panel. Again, it sounds like we're getting another season of Titans, but they haven't been able to film anything yet. And with the announcements about DC Universe the other day, I'd assume this will just be on HBO Max now, where the other sort of DC Universe content is going.
They were adding Batgirl and who else?
We're not getting Batgirl. It sounds like we're getting Barbara Gordon.
Okay, all right.
So I think it's supposed to be Commissioner Barbara Gordon is what we're going to get in the show because they've aged up some of the characters. It sounds like she's one of them. So that's not to say we won't get Batgirl, but I don't think they've announced that yet. And it does sound like another big thing for the next season we will be getting Red Hood, it sounds like. So I don't know I don't think they're taking the same path to get there necessarily, but it sounds like we will get Red Hood with Jason Todd next season.
So yet another path for the Red Hood. So we have this comic path, and we have the Batman Adventure Continues path, and now we'll get the Titans path.
Yeah. After that was the Aquaman panel. Again, this was director.
I just threw up in my mouth.
Patrick Wilson. Again, nothing real definite yet. They haven't, I'm sure they're in probably pre-production on that movie, but I can't think of any real news that came out of that panel.
Didn't they say that it was going to be more serious this time?
We'll see.
Yeah, that's hopefully.
After that was the Ask Harley Quinn segment, and so this was the animated, the Harley Quinn animated series version, kind of giving people life advice. That was a fun thing. After that was the Wonder Woman 80th celebration. And this was Gal Gadot, Patty Jenkins, and Linda Carter on there, kind of talking about Wonder Woman and her influence. Because again, next year will be the 80th anniversary of Wonder Woman. So they kind of premiered the logo for the Wonder Woman 80th anniversary logo. But again, not a lot of news yet about what they plan on doing for that. But again, that's still a ways off. And then there was Tomorrow's Superheroes with Jim Lee, brought to you by Gold House. This was kind of Jim Lee and some others talking about sort of how they're working to bring more Asian creators into the field. And again, kind of keeping with sort of the global themes of the event. After that was the Shazam panel with Zachary Levi and the director and some of the cast of Shazam. And Sinbad showed up. So that was interesting, talking about how he has never been in a Shazam movie, despite what the internet Mandela effect seems to think. But he said he will be in this next Shazam movie. So we'll see if that happens or not. We did get a title where we have Shazam. I can't think of it now. Was it Fury of the Gods?
I don't remember. I don't think I've even saw anything about that.
Yeah, the Shazam 2 essentially will be called Shazam Fury of the Gods. Mm-hmm. That was sort of the announcement at the end there. Again, no footage yet or anything for that. But, they're working on it. After that was the Wonder Woman 1984. The cast plays Werewolf 1984. I'm not familiar with this game. It was just sort of a fun thing they were doing, so I went and made my supper at that point. After that, we got Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and so this is the new Rocksteady Suicide Squad game that they're making. This is set in the Arkham universe, which seems like this would be the one that wouldn't be, but whatever. Again, we saw a trailer for that, where it looks like the Suicide Squad is tasked with taking down the Justice League. So it looks like what story you could get from the trailer. It looks like Brainiac has invaded and has probably turned Superman. We see Superman grab a pilot out of a helicopter that's crashing and then vaporizes him with his heat vision. So it looks like we have another evil Superman in a game. We've already got that with a couple Injustice games.
So yeah, Injustice.
But again, it looks like this is how they're going to justify the Suicide Squad going after the Justice League. I don't know. We'll see. The video, the trailer looks really good. The graphics look really good. And that I'm sure it'll be a good story. I don't think they had a rating yet, but I can't see it not being mature. But again, that was 2022, so that's a little ways off still, too, for that game. But again, all the Arkham games are really strong, as we were talking about earlier. Then after that was the Batman panel for the new movie, which is kind of what everybody was waiting around for. And they had Robert Pattinson on there a little bit talking. And then they had sort of a longer conversation with the director about the movie and what they're wanting to do. And about some of the TV show they're going to be doing to as a sort of companion piece on HBO Max, which the more I hear about that, it just sounds like Gotham. So I'm not sure what we're going to be seeing with that show. But again, at the end of it, we saw the new trailer. And the other thing was, production halted on this with everything being shut down. And so he said they have about 25% of the movie shot. And so everything from that trailer is from that 25%. So again, that's not a lot, but it still looks pretty good in the trailer. Something that I think a lot of people missed was we do see Penguin in the trailer, and it is Colin Farrell under a lot of prosthetics and makeup. So I thought that was I didn't realize that was him till you hear his voice real quick towards the end. But it looks like we've got a new version of Riddler and Catwoman in here. It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. There's a shot of Robert Pattinson at the end where he's taking the mask off, but he still has sort of the eyeliner eye makeup. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people are kind of comparing that to The Crow. Some memes already floating around about that, but I thought the trailer looked pretty good. Again, not a lot of footage yet, so we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, there was some talk about I guess they commented on Batman Ego as some of where the storyline comes from.
Yeah, some of the influence on the story, it sounds like. And yeah, so I think that book is shooting up now too, isn't it? Because of that.
Yeah, there's been some Yeah. Is that one you have in your collection, Dan?
I do have that. I bought that when it came out. That was a good book.
Well, good for you.
But so yeah, if you want to pick that up, now's probably the time to do it.
Well, it's probably too late now. wait till after the movie and it cools down.
But yeah, overall, like, not too many glitches. I'm streaming this thing all day. The only problem I had was when the Batman trailer was playing, my stream froze up. And by the time I got it going again, the trailer was over. So I had to jump online real quick somewhere else and watch it. But yeah, never really crashed on me otherwise, in that 8 hours that this, portion of the event took. But yeah, it was just the Hall of Heroes segment is what they called it for this. And then next month will be some more of the sort of, not live, but just sort of anything you can watch on demand. It sounds like probably a lot more comics and cosplay sort of stuff on that end of it. I know there was also supposed to be an aspect of it where there's supposed to be like free digital comics you can read for 24 hours. That got pushed back to next month too, so that'll be in September. There was some merchandise. There were some sites you can go to. They were putting up shirts throughout the day for just the DC Fandome event in general. And then as they would show, like, here's Black Adam. Now here's a Black Adam shirt you can get. They did that with the Batman too at the end of the event. But again, it's like DC's not doing any other cons. Where are the comics? Where can I go buy an exclusive comic? Like, I'll do that. You know what I mean? I'm not getting out to a con. Where's that? Or like, where's a mug or something? It was mostly T-shirts. And then they had other sort of partners like Lego and Hot Topic and things like that. But it didn't seem like there were a lot of exclusives other than the shirts they had on there. I know at one of the Wonder Woman panels, too, they announced Venus Williams has this line of Wonder Woman clothing she's designed. And so that was one of the things you could kind of get on there and shop for.
But didn't like Jim Lee draw her as a superhero or something like that as part of it as well?
Yeah, but I just saw it on social media. I didn't even see that during the event anywhere.
Okay,
I might have missed it, but yeah.
That was just something I heard. I didn't see it.
Yeah, no, you can find it online, and she was talking about that a little bit, but like you didn't get to see where they were drawing it and kind of designing the character or anything. So I don't know if that was like maybe an interview somewhere or something. I'm not really sure why they didn't show that part of it.
Do you remember what the cheapest price or what you paid for Batman Ego whenever you picked it up? Was it a trade or?
It's a one shot. I just got it for cover price when it was released.
Okay, you don't remember what the cover price was, because the cheapest one on eBay right now is $18 plus shipping. So.
Yeah. No, I mean it was prestige format or whatever. I'm sure it was $5 or $6 or whatever back in the day. So yeah.
And then are you done, or you got one more?
Yeah, I think that's about it. I think, again, if you missed out on this, the big stuff you can find online pretty much everywhere. The trailers and everything kind of went up. There's also gameplay they showed for Gotham Knights.
You skipped the Batman story for next year, where they basically said that they're going to have a Black Batman.
Well, that's a mini series now. That's not the story for next year. That's John Ridley coming in and doing a mini series.
Yeah. But I mean, that's something. But I feel like what they're doing with that is, since they canceled 5G, that's how they're basically trying to keep some. Maybe there's been some work done on that previously, and they're just going to take that work and put it into this instead.
Yeah, that's all that's going to be.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I mean, that'll be its own thing, and they showed a cover for that. But again, I think they said Jose Landron is drawing it. But yeah.
But I assume it's going to be basically like an Elseworlds or a Black Label, where it'll be outside continuity. So. Yeah.
So, and I mean, everybody already kind of knows that was Luke Fox Batman, and that's what that's what it will be.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just kind of made that official, I suppose. But yeah, probably the last remnant of 5G. So.
All right. Well, anything else on Fandome?
I think that was it. I'm going to check out the stuff next month, see what they have on there. But yeah.
Cool.
Interesting way to hold a convention, with everything that's going on. It's about the only way you can do it right now. So, yeah. So everybody want to talk about something you've been reading lately, or?
Yeah, I think so. Unless you think we need to skip it and just go on to Vigilante. I think we're good.
Whatever. Whatever you guys want to do.
All right. Well, Mike, what do you think? You want to fire us off here with something that you've been reading here lately?
Yeah, I will. I went to the trouble of sort of making my list because I knew I wouldn't be able to just remember. So I have a few things I'd like to talk about. One is I just finished volume 1 of Rat Queens. It was an Image comic. It collected the first 5 issues. It's sort of, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's sort of a medieval fantasy comic book by a guy named Curtis Weeb and Rock Upchurch. And the concept that Weeb described it as is Lord of the Rings meets Bridesmaids. And I got to tell you, it was a blast. It was raunchy and violent, and there's basically 5 main characters. You got an elven necromancer, you've got a dwarven fighter, you got a high priestess, and a smidgen Eth. I've never even heard of a smidgen before. It seems like a little bit like a hobbit, but and then a transgender orc named Braga. So I don't know if you guys even heard of this comic.
I have heard of it, but I've not read a single issue of it.
Next time we see each other, I'll bring you my copy. I think you'd really like it.
My sister read that first trade. I know she really liked it, but yeah, I haven't ever checked it out.
Well, I read it for a book club for that group that I do book clubs with out in Utah, and otherwise I probably never would have picked it up. But it was good stuff. The other stuff I've been reading, and I don't know, I've maybe talked about this before. A lot of my reading I frame around what I hear about on podcasts. If they're summarizing, or if they're covering an arc or a particular set of creators. And there's one podcast that's right now covering the Jim Starlin Batman run in the late 80s, early 90s. So the first arc is the Batman 417 through 420, the 10 Nights of the Beast by Jim Starlin and Jim Aparo. And of course, this introduces
KG Beast.
KG Beast, yeah. And it really holds up pretty well. It doesn't hurt that Mike Zeck did the covers. No. I mean, they are fantastic. And even Aparo's stuff. By that time, Aparo, thought he was losing a little bit of his luster, but this was really good by him. So that was just a 4-issue arc that I just wrapped up. And then probably no one ever would guess or say that they've read the same thing in the same 10 years. But National Comics #1 and #5, and this is from 1940. And I'd like to be able to say that I had the original copies of these, but I actually got them off of Digital Comics Museum site, which is all the public domain characters. And although I'm not sure how Uncle Sam fits into that, because DC owns the rights to it, to the character. But anyway, I was listening to a podcast that talked about it, and I thought, man, that sounds really interesting. This is a Will Eisner character, Uncle Sam is. And like I said, this was this was the first appearance of Uncle Sam, and he's like the mystical personification of the American spirit. And #5 was actually the telling of his origin. Then fast forward to 1987, and you remember when Roy Thomas did his Secret Origins run at DC in the 80s, there was an issue #19 that was written by Len Wein and art by Murphy Anderson, and it was a retelling of the Uncle Sam origins. And they kind of combined the first appearance issue in National Comics #1 and the origin issue in National Comics #5. Concepts of both of those into one story. Really very good. And then lastly was Birds of Prey issues 56 through 61, which is the first, I think, DC work that Gail Simone did. If there was anything else, it might have been a one-off or something, but I know that she started her run on Birds of Prey in, 2004, I think. And Ed Benes did the art. And as it happens, this is the first appearance of Savant that we talked about a few minutes ago, and his partner Creel. But it was good too. I mean, Ed Benes sometimes gets a kind of a rap, whether it's bad or good, it's as being the cheesecake artist, but his I mean, the artistry is still pretty good. So that's where I'm at now. And that's on top of all of my new stuff that I'm reading. I figured I'd rather talk about what what stuff I've picked up from the past. So that's it.
Dan, you want to go? You want me to go?
I've been reading, trying to get through the new stuff, really. Joker War, I'm enjoying. Again, the big crossovers are usually hit or miss. I'm enjoying this one so far. Picking up the tie-in issues and stuff, which I usually don't do anymore. Last week, the first issue of Maestro came out, the Hulk villain in the future book. And so this is sort of like that character's origin story. So I'm really enjoying that. So I went back and read Future Imperfect again, kind of catch up on that character. Again, just a really good story if you haven't read that before. Just a 2-part Peter David story with George Perez, of Hulk fighting the evil version of himself in the future.
Did they get Dale Keown to do the art on the new Maestro?
He did like a section of it.
Okay, all right.
He didn't do the entire book. But again, it's a good part where he's in there, and I like the sort of regular artist on it too. So I thought he was supposed to be coming back and doing something, but I might be confused.
He's been in like previews a couple of times. His name's mentioned, but with quarantine, that's so much that stuff's been pushed around. So
and then just sort of regular new stuff I've been reading. I'm still getting caught up on some of the Giants that DC was doing. Got a bunch of those to read, and I'm not in a rush to read those. Really, they're not like affecting continuity or anything like that. So you can take your time with the 100-page issues. I think that's about it right now. Just and everything's so up in the air right now. Trying to get caught up and find stuff and figure out what I've missed with all the crazy publishing and scheduling things right now. So.
Well, I've just been reading 3 things here lately. So it's probably been over about the last 3 weeks. I decided to go back and read the complete 1980 Moon Knight series. So with Doug Monk and of course Bill Sienkiewicz on art. Just felt like there's a lot, they're doing a lot with this character, so I want to at least have read that series. And honestly, it was a bit of a letdown.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know how much of it you've read. How much have you guys read of this series?
Just like a random issue, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, all right. Well, it was supposed to, people always talked about it as being groundbreaking, and the Sienkiewicz arc is just so good, and it's like the writing is mediocre at best, and the Sienkiewicz is a better cover artist, I think, than an artist for the interiors.
Pretty early Sienkiewicz too, though, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, but even he started that, I guess is where it kind of started. Between that and New Mutants is where he kind of got his name. Like even early on when he's trying to be a more traditional artist, like his anatomy's off, and then as he goes crazy with the anatomy, I don't know. I've never really cared for that style. It's one thing to see it on the cover, but not look at it through an entire series, like Elektra Assassin, right? I don't know if you've ever read that, but that's one where it's just I don't know. I felt like the book was hard to look at, just because of how the art style on it is kind of so messy. I know it's deliberate, but that's.
But it's better when he's inking or embellishing, someone. I think it comes across pretty well. But I agree with you that his pencils alone on the interior art is not my favorite.
Yeah. So, but anyway, in Moon Knight, there's this whole thing about the whole multiple personalities, or DAD, dissociative disorder, I think is the correct name for that. But it's like he walks into a room and they'll say, "Hey, Mark." It's like, "No, I'm Steve right now," and it's like, I don't think that's how that works, So I really don't buy into the modern interpretation of that character where they turned him into basically somebody who is schizophrenic. Because I felt like it was more deliberate at that point.
I doubt they were handling that the best, and probably weren't up on the research even
for 1980. Yeah.
I actually, now that you brought that up, I remember I did go back and read Warren Ellis's run a couple years ago that he had on Moon Knight.
Right.
So it was just like those 6 issues he did.
I only read the first issue of that.
Yeah,
So.
I liked it. I kind of wish it would have gone on for longer, but I think it was just 6 issues and he bailed. Or, I mean, I'm sure that was his contract or whatever, but that's all we really got out of it.
Because that one, he was delusional, if I remember correctly, right? He thought he was talking to the Avengers, and in fact, he was just talking to himself at like the last panel of the first issue. Something along that line.
He was talking to Khonshu, too, during that. So it's like how much of that is actually supernatural, how much of that is in his head kind of thing. Like,
so it was a little bit different, they took it kind of to the next level in some of those later stories. But so anyway, it's a character whose design I've always thought is cool, and this interpretation of it, or really this first stories for him, short of Werewolf by Night and Marvel Spotlight, it just wasn't great. Something else I read that wasn't great. I'm picking winners right now. As I did read the first 2 volumes of Faster Than Light from Image. And it's basically, science fiction. So I thought I would probably like this. And basically the premise is a very common story. Earth gets technology to, go into outer space through really don't know how they got it. They just got it. And they start running into alien races. And it's just, there's no, like, I don't know. It's just like they go to this station. There's a bunch of alien races, and it's not like it's anything crazy. It's just that's how it is. So it just didn't quite hit the mark with me. So and in fact at the end of the second trade, I got the impression that if you wanted to finish the story, it wasn't even going to be printed anymore. It was going to be all online. So they were going to wrap it up. Now I could be incorrect about that, but they're basically the last page was like, hey, read the next part, and gave this website, to go to read the next part of the story. So I guess, after those 12 issues, maybe they didn't even continue with it. So, so yeah, I definitely wouldn't recommend that one either, unless you'll read any sci-fi. Then the last thing I read, which was definitely a little bit better read, was I did get around to reading the first 2 issues of Firepower. Yeah, and enjoyed those quite a bit. Now I miss Wei Lun. That's the Mr. Miyagi character, right? Was his name? Does that sound right? Okay, he's really not in it, for the first 2. But I do feel like it's a good setup. So I did really enjoy those first 2 issues of Firepower. So, and if you haven't, we did. It's there's a prelude graphic novel that's out there that you can pick up, and really it's the prelude graphic novel, other than like the last 3 pages, is not directly related to the current story. It's as it says, it's a prelude to to the current one, which fast forwards several years to what we get in the Image series. And of course it's Kirkman and Chris Samnee, so the Samnee artwork makes it worthwhile regardless, and then the Kirkman story is good. So I'm going to keep reading that one. So
yeah, I really enjoyed those 2. And if you're picking those up, check out, what would be the letters column is kind of commentary on the issues from Kirkman and Samnee. So that was kind of a neat thing they did in there. Something else I wanted to bring up, I forgot, was I read the new volume of Green Lantern Earth 1 that came out a couple weeks ago. That was really good. I liked the first volume a lot. This was another really good chapter in that story. Just sort of its own Green Lantern story where it's more in the future and humans are just starting to go out into space and make contact with aliens, and Hal Jordan gets kind of thrown into the Green Lantern Corps, or what's left of it. This new volume was really good. I wish they would get these things out quicker. We usually have 2 or 3 years in between books. I really wish we'd get them like every 6 months or something like that, so you could actually get some progress with these stories. But I feel like Green Lantern is probably right up there with Batman and kind of being the best of this line that we've gotten. And again, I was just thinking too, like before, I want to say it was before they started Doomsday Clock, they were showing pages from the next chapter of the Batman Earth 1. It's like Doomsday Clock's been over for a little while now. Where's that book at that you were bragging about you were making progress on, So.
Yeah, the Earth 1 books have been hitting really more miss for me. I know like the Superman one, I didn't think was great. And that was J. Michael Straczynski was the writer on that one, right?
Uh-huh.
And he's usually pretty good.
That's why he dumped his Superman and Wonder Woman runs, was to get that next book out.
Yeah, and then the Wonder Woman one by Grant Morrison was not. I didn't think it was good at all, and I don't remember the Batman one at all. So the Green Lantern is the best of those.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Batman ones too, but I really like the Green Lantern. I think it's good.
I may never have picked up Batman because I didn't care because of the how mediocre the Superman and Wonder Woman's were. So
no, Batman's worth reading, and I think Green Lantern is too.
Okay.
The Teen Titans ones I can probably do without. But again, I like the Wonder Woman one okay, and Superman's been all right. But again, I think Batman and Green Lantern are kind of the top of that line.
Okay. Mike, you were going to say something.
I was just going to agree that I didn't like the Wonder Woman all that well, and I have just purchased the Green Lantern, so I'm looking forward to pulling out and reading it.
Yeah.
One more thing before we move on to talking about Vigilante. Sci-Fi Channel weekend before last had an hour special about Todd McFarlane. I finally got around to watching that last night, so it's actually pretty good. So if you care anything at all about Todd McFarlane's history, I mean, they only get into as much as you can. There's a little bit of like this background about him getting Spawn 300 out. So it's a fairly recent documentary. They go back, his early days at, Epic on Coyote, just to touch on that briefly, going into Marvel, and then the whole Image thing and the toy line, and they bring up some of the negatives, the $15 million lawsuit he lost to the hockey guy, and the Neil Gaiman lawsuit, and the bankruptcy. So they touch on all that, but I feel like it's a net positive on Todd McFarlane after having watched it. So
yeah, I think I don't know if it still is, but that was on YouTube, so you can watch it there. Mm-hmm. Sci-Fi Channel also did a pretty good documentary about Image, sort of the early days of Image, that kind of covers some of that ground too. That's worth watching. So, and again, that was on YouTube. Okay, you want to check those out. But yeah, I watched that documentary too. It was pretty good.
Yeah. All right, Vigilante.
Well, just real quick, I did like the moment on there where they're trying to get the Spawn 300 covers off to press, and they were like, when they were on the phone with the thing, when's the last day you need these? And she's like, well, to do that, we would need them today. So end of business day today. It's like I've been there with deadlines and things, so I can appreciate that.
Yeah, they only had 300 covers for that book. So.
Hey, I want to plug something. If you're talking about basically comic-related documentaries, and the best one I've watched, I think, is I've seen it on an airplane actually. It's called Batman and Bill, and it's the story of Bill Finger. And man, that was really engrossing.
That was available on Amazon Prime for a while or something.
It was on Hulu too. I don't know if it still is or not.
Oh, okay. Because I think I put that in one of my queues and then never got around to watching.
Oh, it's good. It's worth watching.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's not part of Prime any longer if it was. So. All right. So Vigilante.
We want to talk about more comic documentaries first, though. Comic Book Confidential is always worth watching.
I'm just looking at that one too. Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I want to.
Oh, it's good.
Well, I guess I'll go first. Since
you got the Fantastic Four documentary that's on Amazon Prime, and
yeah.
maybe we should do that some other show.
Yeah, start some spinoffs.
There you go. So.
I really feel like we're kind of. I've lost touch with our previous Vigilante readings. There's a few things in this story that I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that character. So I'm glad to pick this up again.
Well, okay, so when we left off, right? Vigilante was he shot or he was stabbed, right?
Yeah, both.
Stabbed, right?
Oh wait, yeah, he was shot too. So yeah.
Okay, so he was taken to a hospital, and what was his name? JJ basically hijacks the ambulance, so that way he doesn't end up at the at the hospital. So that's
it wasn't until the second scene I was like, oh yeah, JJ's still in that damn ambulance.
That was the cliffhanger where we left off, where Vigilante was shot by the guy named Saber and stabbed by the guy named Cannon.
Yeah.
They show up again too.
All right, I've got a pretty in-depth. I won't even call it it's not a summary, it's a synopsis. So
right.
I haven't quite mastered the art of summarizing, so bear with me here. Vigilante number 6, the cover date is May of 1984. The cover is illustrated by Ross Andrew and Dick Giordano, and it is somewhat symbolistic in design. I actually had to look this up to see if I could best describe the design of this cover, and a lot of symbolism in the art style. It's featuring our title character laying in a hospital bed with his arm in a sling and several transfusion lines of blood connected to his body. In a sort of a faded background, we have Vigilante facing off with some hooded spectral characters. This cover seems to evoke some of the memories that the story behind this cover will be telling. The name of the story is Memories, written by Marv Wolfman, penciled by Chuck Patton. Super happy to see that. And inked by Pablo Marcos. Donna Amasidio, from a few issues ago, returns to the story as she and all of the New York crime families are arriving at the mansion of an unknown host for a formal dinner. The mysterious host wants to bring all of the crime families under one umbrella, promising to revolutionize all crime. In the next scene, Vigilante's partner J.J. Davis is still in the process of evading the police in his ambulance that he stole last issue. Vigilante's still in the back, looking pretty mortally injured with a knife buried in his chest. The police are hot on their heels, but JJ was able to duck into an open garage door and somehow loses the cops. JJ breaks serious knife wound rule number 1 by pulling out the knife from Vigilante's chest. But my first hint that something wasn't quite normal here was that the art showed very little bleeding from the wound. So JJ also realizes he better remove Vigilante's mask and put him in street clothes before he drops him off at the hospital. And he gets there, he drops him off, trying to avoid having to fill out any paperwork. That doesn't always seem to work in real life, but he does it. He drops him off and says, I gotta go, bye. So I'll break right there if you guys got any comments.
I want to go back to the mobster meeting at the beginning here.
Okay.
So we have a woman who is named Corinda, and another gangster named Ramiro asks her, "You still keep Polaroids of all your hits?" And she's got like her wallet pictures out, apparently, of people she's killed. It seems weird keeping that evidence around, let alone on your person. Yeah, and again at this meeting we have some sort of G.I. Joe looking soldiers show up, and again we get another mention of the Monitor, which again, this sort of dubious subplot of Monitor equipping villains and things like that I don't think ever really played into anything in Crisis, even though that's apparently what it was supposed to be setting up back in the day.
Yeah, being this early in 1984, it was still, his role wasn't quite defined yet, and
Yeah.
when I first seen his name, I thought, oh, good, we're going to see an appearance of him, or at least maybe a shadow appearance in the book, but we didn't. We just got the reference.
And yeah, I had to go back a couple times with how JJ eluded the cops here. So it looks like what he's doing is he goes through the parking garage out the other end, and then there's a semi truck sort of parked on the street there, and so it looks like he has gone and ducked the ambulance behind the semi truck real quick, and the cops go off in the other way.
Yeah, I wasn't real clear on that either.
Yeah, it's not that clear, and it's a dubious way to get away from the police to begin with.
Yeah.
How would they not notice the ambulance there? They kind of crop it off in the panel and that sort of thing, but.
And it's like, why did he leave the siren on the entire time he was driving?
Yeah, I know. Why was the lights go on? Yeah, that won't draw attention to you.
Right.
So, yeah.
Scott, do you have anything else?
No.
All right, so in our next scene, we're switched over to the police headquarters where Captain Hall and his crew are trying to figure out who exactly the vigilante is, noting that based on the evidence they have so far, he seems to be cop or a judge or a lawyer or something like that. Then back at Bellevue Hospital, JJ meets Terry. She's the other partner of the team, and they're inquiring of Chase's condition. They give the nurse fake names. Some crazy, about as fake sounding as they can be. And they concoct a plan to intercept the admissions form that had Chase's name and the description of his injuries, so that because if the hospitals have protocols, they turn in any kind of stab or shot shooting wounds to the police, so they had to get that paperwork. Anyway, they put together a distraction so they could get it, and as they leave the hospital, JJ and Terry discuss the overall situation. Terry sort of lamenting that after months of Chase being cold and emotionless after his family was killed, he was just starting to come around and be the old friend that they used to have. JJ tells her, "Don't worry, I think he is coming around still." In fact, he's asked JJ to develop this gun that would also fire sleep darts, not just bullets. So to him, that sounds like he's a less intense, less violent guy. And then back at the hospital, this is where we get into some good reveals. We learned from the surgeon that the knife that stabbed Vigilante had cut through the lower ventricle of his heart. Now, folks, that is a mortal wound, no matter how you slice it. But instead, he was actually healing even as they were operating on him. And I think this is our first indication of the tissue regeneration metahuman powers that he may have. You might say it's a second because, he supposedly died for 7 minutes, clinically dead, and came back. This is a little bit more overt. And in Chase's hospital room, we get a flashback of his death in a sort of a dream sequence that he's laying there. And it shows how, the explosion that killed his wife and kids also killed him. And before he could ascend into the afterlife, some force sent him back here to the mortal plane. And we see he's later approached at his family's graves by a mysterious hooded figure, learning that he left with the figure and he would never return the same person again. Any thoughts on that little segment?
Yeah, I want to go back to the hospital when they're sort of swiping the admissions records so they can hide that Chase is there at the hospital. And we're introduced to this character, Benjamin, who is like a nurse or an orderly or something, who apparently just goes around flirting with all the nurses.
I almost heard it, but I thought, oh my God, this is going to take me 20 minutes to tell that story.
Yeah, that's a whole other issue. What Benjamin gets up to at night at the hospital. It's like he's just tearing through them all, I guess. I don't know. That's going to cause him there's going to be some sitcom-like repercussions for that later.
Oh, yeah, it was terrible.
So
keep going.
Go?
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, Chase wakes up, in the hospital with JJ and Terry in the room with him. And by this time, Chase is informed by the doctor that he's informed by the doctor that he was nearly totally healed, as if he'd never been shot or stabbed. And as the doctor goes to get forms for testing, Chase and his crew make their escape from the hospital and head back to headquarters. Adrian falls back asleep later and returns to his dream flashback, which depicts his encounter with another hooded figure. I'm not sure if it's the same one or not, who shows him how they are both unable to be harmed permanently. She tries to convince him by showing how she burns herself and it heals. That he grabs the sword that he has, or gives him the sword and forces him to run it through her. She heals from that. Now she did qualify all of that, saying that more serious injuries would be mortal. If he got blown up or something like that, he wouldn't return to he wouldn't come back from that. And then meanwhile at the mansion where all the crime bosses had gathered, we learned that the woman that had gathered them together is just a contact for her boss. And this is where we are reintroduced to the controller, who is apparently on that complete life support system, that legless cybernetic body from the neck down. And like I said last time we talked about him, I can't shake the feeling that he reminds me of Dr. Savannah, that's combined with that Doom Patrol villain, the Brain. And he's also got those exterminator robots with him as well. And that's where we end that issue.
Was it Davros from Doctor Who? The
thing, I think so.
For the Daleks. Yeah, that's kind of who it reminds me of. So.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else on this issue, but on the letter page, we get a note saying that Keith Pollard will no longer be the artist on the book, which is kind of disappointing because I like those first few issues that he did. And they did say that Ross Andrew will be taking over, but Chuck Patton will be kind of doing these issues that we're talking about here. So probably next time we talk, we'll be getting into Ross Andrew art.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more in favor of the Chuck Patton art. I mean, he did a lot of that Justice League, and towards the end of that original run, with the Justice League Detroit, that was where I was first exposed to him, and I really liked him. But Ross Andrews, he was at that time, he was one of the senior artists in the industry, and a lot of respect for him. A lot of Spider-Man work he did, a lot of covers for Superman, Batman.
Anybody else have anything on this issue?
Nothing else on 6.
Okay, so I think we're going to go into issue 7 now. And again, now this is a Ross Andrew and DeCarlo cover for this issue of Vigilante. And this story is called Origin. And it's, Marv Wolfman and Chuck Patton again with Mike DeCarlo inking. So it starts out with Captain Hall in the hospital room of Saber and Cannon, who are the assassins who tried to kill Vigilante with the mismatched names. I don't know. I just can't shake that wasn't just some sort of error on somebody's part during production. They just never went back and fixed it. But in the hospital here, Cannon takes a plastic knife from his food tray and throws it into Captain Hall's neck. So not a metal knife, but a plastic. So apparently he's the bullseye.
Yes.
Plastic knives. And so when some cops come into the room, they are able to overpower them and escape. The next section is Adrian, now healthy. Again, we've learned about his sort of limited healing ability. And he's running with Marcia, who we were previously introduced to as, apparently his girlfriend here now. And they run into, Judge Wells' character, who kind of floats the idea of Chase becoming a judge in the future. Again, I think that's something we'll see play out later on. Then we cut back to the sort of mobster meeting where the controller and his men have showed up. And a lot of them try to blow him off. Donna Studio, though, says she'll hear him out. It's whatever his demands are. Then we are back in the 80s RV action station with Adrian and JJ and his crew, where he starts to recount what happened during the missing 6 months of when his family died and he became Vigilante. Again, it's something they still haven't gone over in the book. And so, again, we're bringing up this sort of shadowy figure who takes Adrian out to the desert and attacks him, and then makes him walk through the desert until they get to this sort of pit they have to go down into, where we're seeing this sort of, council of characters who say, who are training him now and sort of putting him through these pretty extreme paces. So a lot of martial arts and firearms training and different things, and holding these crazy rocks up. I don't know, trying to invoke Luke and Yoda a little bit there, maybe. But then over, they say, they keep bringing up months he was doing this, but again, it's still within that sort of 6-month time frame, so it can't be any longer than that. But again, just these sort of different characters that he's fighting and learning from, and now he finally puts his hand into the fire, which we saw him run away from in the last issue, and realizing that he's, impervious to these sort of attacks. But then he realizes that now his hands are sort of passing through these characters that have been training him all this time, and that we learn that these characters are all dead. These are apparently ghosts or apparitions or something that have been training him this whole time. These are people who were sort of innocents that were killed, or lost their lives through violence. And now he is sort of, their avatar, I suppose, to protect the innocent. So again, way more supernatural than I thought Adrian Chase's origin would be. We don't really get a lot of follow through with that so far in the series. We'll see if they go further into that maybe as we go through this. Again, maybe it's just something else that helps differentiate the character from other sort of anti-heroes like Punisher. You know, symbolically, I think it kind of makes sense, you know. But again, I feel like we're maybe getting a little bit of Crow territory here too. You know, do you guys have anything you wanted to bring up?
I got a couple of things.
Issue? Okay.
So, like, you know, going back to the very first scene where they're in the hospital, they put the two guys in the same room.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't happen, folks.
I don't know. I think Mike might be right about this. These guys seem to be pretty chummy too.
They put them in a hotel room together. Now
there might be something to that.
I don't know. Maybe they're Siamese twins. We just don't know what they're connected by. I don't know. But I do think the whole scene in the park, it's like the attire. This is kind of humorous. You know, all the headbands on the girls are all wearing headbands.
This is the 80s.
Yeah, I like the judge who shows up, you know, shirtless but the sweatpants on.
Well, he's got the towel. He's got the towel over him.
Yeah.
Around his shoulders.
So the attire does date this just a little bit, you know. I struggled with the supernatural origin for this character, you know. But again, like you said, it almost has to be something to, you know, differentiate it from other characters. So, but yeah, other than that, I didn't really have any other comments.
I just thought it was a nice break from some of the stories we've been getting so far. It's you know, there is you do get introduced to some new antagonists, or at least some going to be recurring antagonists. But I like the idea of the origin story and the flashbacks, and it was I like the art quite a bit as well. So I did like also this Blue Devil was the house ad for the debut of Blue Devil, one of my favorite characters. Yeah, that was really cool.
Well, this issue also has the Oreo ad for the free Batman comic book, which is the Nabisco reprint of Detective Comics 27, which does go for a few bucks now.
Yeah.
You've got a copy of that. And again, I think there's an ad for the there's a Saga Swamp Thing ad in here too. And for the Joe Kubert School, so.
You know, I know that it's the Baxter type paper. It's printed in Canada and still instead of here in Sparta, Illinois. But you know what? This really did set to me the quality of the books. It was definitely even back then it was worth $1.50 or $1.25 you were paying instead of the 75 cents.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just real quick too, we were touching on the ads. I wanted to bring up the ad that didn't age so well here. We have the American Red Cross ad featuring Bill Cosby.
Oh, I see that all the time. Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh.
You can't send money. If you can't send money. I just want to remind all our listeners to not send yourself to Bill Cosby, especially now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. You want to grade these two issues, or?
I'll say very fine on issue 6, and I'll probably give 7 a fine. I think.
All right, go ahead, Mike.
I'm bumping it up. I almost have to because I think I set the baseline a little bit too high earlier on in this run, but I'm going to give this a very fine near mint.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've been a very good fine on like the issues leading up to this. I did feel like these two were a little bit better than what we'd read before, so I'm kind of like a fine plus on these issues, fine plus, very fine minus range on these two issues. So I
was really looking forward to the origin of this character, mm-hmm. and I don't know, the supernatural aspect just kind of took me for a loop, sort of thematically. We'll see where that goes. I mean, if they never mention it again, that'll be kind of weird. You know what I mean? But maybe it plays into the story somehow. We're not seeing yet.
I would hope so.
I might feel better about it later on if it leads to something. So I think next time we're talking about Vigilante, we'll probably be looking at issues 8, 9, and 10. It looks like with the way the stories kind of play out.
Yeah, I figure we'll just figure that out off air.
Yeah, but just in case anybody's following along at home, wants to read ahead or something.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to bring up, or?
I think I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to let everybody know to remind everyone that this Saturday, August 29th, we're going to be doing the sort of mini con at the store at Campus Comics. Again, it's also Record Store Day, and there's going to be some other stuff going on around there. And that will be at 816 East Main Street, Suite B in Carbondale. And this is Dan Brown. You can find me online at Detective651 on Twitter, Instagram, and my TeePublic store. Scott, where can everybody find you if they want to stalk you?
All right, they can find me at burgcomics.com, burgcomics.com, and I'll be at Campus Comics this coming Saturday for MiniCon 2. I would like to throw out there that if you are listening to the podcast, we are available on iTunes and Google Podcasts and all of those places. So it would be great if you would take the time to jump over one of those sites and just give it a review. Hopefully a 5-star, but the point would be is just to kind of help get the word out a little bit. We do this mainly just for the the local people at the shop, because it really is kind of focused on Campus Comics. But it would be great just to even regionally just to get a little bit more recognition for the shop. Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I'm at Mike Atchison 5.
On Twitter.
On Twitter, yeah.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for this time. We'll see you next time.
I'm going to sing a song, Dan's going to dance, and Scott, you recite a poem.